City Talks with Reuben Abati.
Welcome to another edition of your number one talk show, City Talks with Reuben Abati, on your number one lifestyle station, City 1051 FM. On this show, we discuss stories of political and human interest that affect us all as citizens of Nigeria and as members of the global human community. Today, we'll be discussing the new Inspector General of Police, national security, and other matters of interest in our country. And to guide us through this, we have a special guest. Great pleasure indeed to have on this program today Professor Kila, a professor of strategy and development. Professor Kila is the Center and International Director of Studies at the European Center of Advanced and Professional Studies, CIAPS. He's a regular commentator on the BBC and a columnist with the National This Day newspaper, whose articles and essays are also published in various other news outlets. Professor Kila studied in Cambridge, London, Perugia, and Suffolk. He graduated with first-class degree in political science and later specialized as a scholar of political anthropology. He has taught in a variety of colleges and universities in Cambridge, Ipswich, Leeds, London, Perugia, and Siena. He worked as a banker in the City of London and later as a project and management consultant. He's an expert of internationalization and joint ventures, and he has worked on various international projects across the globe. As a policy analyst and advisor, he has also worked with many organizations in Europe and in Commonwealth countries. If you want to be part of this conversation, you can call us on 0700 1051 1051, and you can also leave comments on WhatsApp 09099164403 and on our social media accounts at City1051 on Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. This week, we had the federal government, the president, dismissing, if I may use that word, former IGP Muhammad Adamu, whose tenure ended on February 1, but whose tenure was extended by 3 months, and he still had just about 27 days to go. And in fact, he had even gone to court to say that his tenure that had been extended by the president was covered by the Police Act 2020, and that in the light of that, he would stay in office till 2023. That was very controversial. The presidency at the time said the president could in fact extend his tenure. But it came as a shock, as a big surprise, when this week he was asked to leave. This was on April 6th. What do you think could have happened? Why did the president suddenly lose confidence in his ability to secure Nigeria?
In this case, I feel sorry for those who have to defend the government, because it's a very dangerous thing. It's a roller coaster ride to defend this government or project it, because as a professional or as a supporter, whether passionate or professional, if you are 3 weeks ago saying, the next thing after sliced bread is the IGP and he must stay, then all of a sudden your principal goes around and change that, it sort of leaves you twisting in the wind, really. And I've been observing some commentators and supporters of the government. I see them stutter and a bit lost for words. It's not a clear scene and it's not good. By the way, let's talk about the process as well. The man was fired. That is the words that the newspaper carried on the day he went to do a visit with the vice president to go and pay a professional visit in another state. Apparently landed from the aircraft and the agency receives as you're fired. He also tells you about how chaotic things are in this administration. I say this because the consequence of that chaos is then competence in governance. So it is not a good scene at all, and I'm worried for Nigeria when situations are like this.
The former Inspector General of Police was in a worry when he received information or signal that he had been fired, to use the phrase you say the newspapers are using. Some commentators are linking, the manner of his removal to the situation in Imo State. Imo State had completely, the situation there had completely gone out of hand with the attack on the prison with the attack on the police headquarters in the state, with the attempted attack on government house, all of these structures within the same vicinity, and then to worsen the matter, there had been other attacks on police stations in that area. In neighboring Abia State, the governor had to declare curfew in Umuahia and Abia. So, do you think that there's any linkage, to what has been happening, not just in the southeast, but also in the southwest and in the north, since the extension of the man's tenure?
Well, across the country, of course, there is a link to it. You see, since the extension of his tenure, I'll tell you before that, I have personally called for his removal publicly months before this. And you see, the point is this. You're in a country where the most important function of governance, which is security and certainty, is not being absorbed. You shouldn't be talking about extending the tenure of an IGP. You should be talking of firing him a long time ago, just like all the service chiefs. But because you have a country that is not run on common sense, and most of what it does is an assault to intellectual morality, you therefore have a situation where competence is not clear. There doesn't seem to be a progression based on merit. What you seem to have is some kind of mystical, vague, unclear process. The issue is in Owerri, in Imo State and other parts of the country, a symptom of a weak state, a state that is losing its institutional power and its moral authority to govern. Competence on clarity is what you have. The people you should understand that there's some symbolic things in rebellion. Freeing prisoners, burning police stations, are direct assault to the state. Now, mind you, the state might have enemies. The point is that these people are doing it because they can. And they can because there is no competence. I say two things here very quickly. All the people that steal in the world, one thing they like to steal is money. Most people commit most crime because of money. And yet, the bank cannot rob daily. Do you know why? Because they cannot rob it. Because those in charge of the bank put in system where it is almost impossible to rob them. That is why, though crave money, you have little incidents of bank robbery. Now, people aim to cause terror in Nigeria, but those governing the country do not have the means to stop them. The other thing I'm going to say is this. I go back to the firing and appointment of the new IGP. Whilst the IGP, the now former IGP, was traveling with the vice president on a state visit, which of course wasn't haphazard. They must have informed them before. So they were planning the message. They were planning the trip. The period in which the vice president and the IGP were planning to do a state visit, some people elsewhere were planning to fire the IGP. It just tells you, the kind of chaos we're managing in the country. So the VP obviously was not aware of it. The IGP was not aware of it. And some people were aware of that. So there's a parallel government, there's a parallel structure. This is worrisome.
Well, Dr. Kila, let's talk about, I said Dr. Kila, well, it's the same, Professor Kila. Now, the Nigerians are always excited when, a high-ranking government official is fired and replaced. So now we have this new IGP, they say Acting Inspector General of Police, Usman Alkali Baba. But again, Nigerians are not so happy about the person that the president has chosen, even if he's the president who has the power to hire and fire and put his own team together. What do you think of some of those reactions about, he's from Yobe State, why another northerner? Or, he's a Muslim. Can't the president find a Christian to be president, to be Inspector General of Police? And most importantly, the question has been raised about the constitutionality of his emergence. Ordinarily, the Inspector General of Police is supposed to emerge through the recommendation of the Police Council. But obviously,
Yes.
the police council has no hand in this. It's the president who has just unilaterally appointed this acting inspector general of police after a pattern, it would seem.
Let me start with you before I go to other people's reaction. This idea that the president has the power to fire and dismiss people, to employ and fire people at will, is a misconception. Yes, he has the power to do it, but he has to do such things within the framework of the law and within the commonsensical political etiquette of respecting constituencies, interests, and democratic mandate. Anything short of that is cruel, crude tyranny, which we need to really stand up against. Now, the other one is this: people are happy when they dismiss people. It's not because they particularly hate them. It's because most times the dismissed people have not performed exceptionally well. So it's always good riddance to them. I mean, we struggle to find star boys and, extraordinary performance in public life in Nigeria. So when they go, we're always hoping that tomorrow is better, like the 17th century poem of Pirandello. We always hope that tomorrow is better than today, because today and yesterday always seems to be bad, and we hope tomorrow is a better one, like a new year. Now, here we have a problem. We have two issues that needs to be addressed. Number one is that ideally, in a situation where we have security emergency, and I say that word because security emergency is a key issue. It's big. You cannot have insecurity problem in a state and think of doing any other thing. If I had my way, everything would be suspended in Nigeria until we sort out the issue of security. If not totally suspended, at least taken to a very far second place before we deal with any other thing. Okay, so we have a security issue in the country, and you pick an IGP who is not known for some sort of extraordinary performance. There's something weird about that. I mean, I wish the new IGP good luck because he has been so insignificant I don't even know him for anything. But ideally, the kind of IGP you should pick should be somebody that we know, because we should be able to say of him, when he was commissioner in one state, these are the kind of thing he has done. When he was head of certain department, this is what he has done. I'm talking of a track record. That is the sort of merit issue. Then there's the political issue. You have a presidency, and here I deliberately say presidency, not presidents. You have a presidency that is dealing with all issues of ethnic rebellion, national agitation. People are complaining that they're nepotistic. A large section of the society are saying they're not represented. And nobody in that presidency has the clarity of vision and the courage of voice to say, let us make an appointment that reflects what people are complaining about. It's either the presidency does not give a hoot about what people are complaining about, or the presidency is made up of men that has no vision and has no courage of voice. And at some point, we need to say these things clearly, because we can't gloss over it. Nobody can convince me that for political reasons, you cannot find a new IGP that assuages the concern of a large section of Nigeria. I do not agree with that. If you are going to continue in the trend of which you have been accused of being nepotistic, sectional, and one-sided in your appointments, it better be a genius, It better be a Reuben Abati of journalism or broadcasting, because otherwise there's no point to manage it. Surely there'll be somebody there. It has to be a Ronaldo of football that, okay, everybody knows that this is the real best. Here's a man, by all accounts, at best is normal, at worst is going to be incompetent, and you bring him following that same pattern. We have an issue here, and it's not right.
Well, the acting Inspector General of Police, Usman Akali Baba, we're told, had been DIG in charge of the Criminal Investigations Department. He's been Commissioner of Police in Delta State and another state. He's also been Force Secretary. And, we're told that He's had significant experience. He's been CPFCT and CP Delta, DIG, Force Criminal Investigations Department, and all of that. And he has a master's in political science, we're told. I bet you say you have never heard of him. But let's move beyond that. Now, when he was decorated on Wednesday by the vice president made it very clear that expectations are high in terms of securing Nigeria. On Friday, when he himself met with some strategic zonal commanders, I don't know what that label is all about, but it sounds like a fancy label for policemen. But he made a point that his priority would be to rejig the operational strategy of the police. This is a phrase we hear again and again. What is that new thing that you think this IGP should do instead of just mouthing, familiar rhetorical phrases that no longer mean anything to Nigerians?
Well, now here's the point. The man he's repeating platitudes that we've heard before. But sadly, he has no choice. He has to repeat them because nobody has made true, nobody has turned to reality those platitudes and wishful thinking. So we're back to square one. We're there. We have to wish the new IGP well. This IGP is like when your son or your child, son or daughter, comes home with a spouse you are not sure about. You just have to pray for them and hope everything goes well. You really have no choice. So here's a man. There's some advice we can quickly give him. He needs to understand that the Nigerian police force, the way it stands at the moment, is understaffed, overused, ill-equipped, and lacks moral compass of what is it to be the police force of a modern state. There has to be sort of an underlying philosophy of knowing where we are before we decide what to do and where we want to go to. So that's the situation. They then need to go to some little nitty-gritty. For example, let him set himself a task of changing the perception of Nigerian police force as people who take money on the road. Let us start with that. He needs to go to more cogent things of real security issues and to do his best. There are some little operational things he can do. He can decide to rejig the operation in the police stations. At the moment, ask every average Nigerian, including your listeners, whatever takes you to the police station, whether you're a complainant or you're a defendant, all you wish to do is go home. The police officers seem created to waste people's time. They take time on everything they do. Somebody needs to create a new protocol that understands that police are dealing with citizens and nobody has intention of going to police station, whether as complainant or as defendant, and they need to save their time. If they need more computers, if they need more training, they should let us know. Somebody needs to design a framework. The new IGP needs to set himself 4 to 5 agenda and build the legacy, since he now has the privilege, or shall we say luck, because I repeat, his ascension to IGP-hood, to which I wish him all the best, is something that has no track record. You are rolling out his CV. He has masters, he's been IT, he's been that. What has he achieved? I've been playing football and cooking for years. What have I won for football, or what music record have I delivered that people will know me for? That is nothing. Just because you've been there for a long time means little or nothing. What he needs to tell us exactly what he has achieved there. Actually, it is my view that most people who have been there for long in Nigeria are part of the problem. So I do not buy that thing. Well, we wish him well, and we wish he understands that he has a very bad organization. I repeat, ill-equipped, understaffed, overstretched, not very well trained, and he has a lot of things to do, and wish him well. Of course, let him add police welfare in whatever he's doing as well.
Okay, I'd like to take your thoughts quickly about non-state actors. I mean, in the course of that crisis, ongoing crisis in Imo State, there were references to the Indigenous Peoples Organization of Biafra, IPOB, reference to the Eastern Security Network. And if you come to the South-West, where there is also a very serious security challenge, you have, we used to have the OPC, now you have the Amotekun. Now, in fact, so many non-state actors that are not even operating under any kind of organizational framework, but also insist that they will provide security. Now, what does this say about the security ecosystem in Nigeria. We have a situation now where anybody can just stand up and say, well, I will defend my people. I will defend this space. Is that how it is done elsewhere?
No, it is not done so elsewhere. Well, it was done so elsewhere about 300 to 500 years ago. Now, he's not that way anymore. Well, after accusing the IGP of repeating platitude, I hate to repeat a commonplace, but then I have no choice. It's a Nigerian factor. The truth is, what people say, that truism, nature harbors vacuum, is true. You have the emergence and the predominance of non-state actor because the state itself is latent and not impactful. Where the state is not present, other agencies will step forward. And it is unfortunate that the mentality which people have to provide generators because the state is not providing light, it is now translating to people having to provide security because the state is not capable of providing security. Across the country, the state is incapable of finding bandits and terrorists, but then you have a sheikh who knows where to find them and talk to them. Non-state actors 1, state 0. You have a situation where the state is not capable of defending citizens against bandits who go to farm to kill people. Then a non-state actor stands up and he becomes a hero. State 0, non-state actor 1. The problem here is that the state is not playing its role. The needs are there, the interests are there, and at some point, some people need to step in. And stepping in, but I want to call your attention to something. There's a group called Yoruba Global Alliance, which I belong to. Interestingly, about a month or so ago, I think about 2 months ago, they issued a very robust statement in which, unlike people just following mob leadership or doing chaos, that group asked for in the Southwest, saying that where to start from is that elected officers and nominated officers who are wielding power in the name of the people should step up and let us know what their position is. And I think that kind of call to duty is what is necessary. But before we call to duty, it is important to understand and accept that the state is latent and not impactful. And that is why you have non-state actors coming in. Because people have issues, they need to be resolved. If you cannot get the state, you get community. If you cannot get community, you get some sort of group and individuals will start coming up. That's what's going on. It all boils down to the presence or absence of the state.
If you are just joining us on City Talks with Reuben Abati here on City 1051, your number one lifestyle station. Our guest is Professor Anthony Kila, a professor of strategy and development, and we've been discussing the appointment of a new Inspector General of Police, national security matters, and other issues of interest. At this point, Professor Kila, I see that our listeners usually would like to be part of the conversation. And you know the number to call us, 0700-1051-1051. And you can send messages on WhatsApp, 090-916-4403. Now, who is that? We have a caller on the line. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Reuben.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Thank you for joining us. Please go ahead.
Yes, I really wish there's a story I would like to share. There is some
Your name, please. Your name and your location, please.
Yeah, my name is Toby. I'm calling from Ejibo. Sam Edna base was named after Sam Edna because of what he did. They have been having different commanders coming to that base and not making impact. But when Sam Edna came in, under a space of few months, though he died on service, he died in service. Under a space of few months, the man really made a serious impact, which the Air Force base was named after him. I really wish this current Inspector General of Police can emulate such person. Come in and make an impact. Just even if it's one thing we are going to do for everybody to know that, okay, during also regime of this new Inspector General of Police, we have this kind of change. I really wish you can have that. If that's the only thing you can do. Just like our spokesperson said. He said, even if it's to stop people, policemen from collecting money on the road, if that's the only thing he can do for us, I think we'll be happy with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Toby from Ejigbo. Professor Kila, I'm sure you heard him. He's asking for
absolutely.
Leadership.
That's the man talking from experience. Even if we can stop them from taking money, I think people should set an agenda for the IGP. Maybe if we set an agenda for him, then we can test him later on to see how well he has done.
Okay. Do we have another caller on the line? So we can take as many interventions as possible. I'm not seeing the Zoom screen. How is this done now? So that I will know who wants to talk via Zoom.
Hello, Dr.
Okay.
Abati.
Yes, I can see Dr. Adini, you there?
Good afternoon, Dr. Abati.
Good afternoon. Please, could you identify yourself?
My name is Ambrose, and I live in Mowe.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Doc. I'm Abiodun Adeni, and I'm a teacher at the Base University, Abuja. Prof, my question is slightly generic. I just discovered that, like you probably all know, there's often a distance between theory and practice, between saying and doing, and between pronouncements and implementation. Do you not think, there's still an X factor that we need to identify and resolve, in taking systems so as to take our systems and institutions to a much more salutary level? People like you and I, and probably Dr. Abati will simply be described as theorists, who will probably encounter something different when they get into government or governance. And how do you think that the X factor between saying and doing, between performance and mouthing, can be balanced, so to say, Prof? Thank you, Doc.
Professor Kila? Hello, Professor Kila? Hello, Professor Kila?
Yes, I'm here, yes.
Okay, did you hear the poser by Dr. Abiodun Adeni?
I'm sorry, I missed Doctor's intervention. I just lost the network there. So if you want to reiterate what Doctor said for me, please. I just missed it.
Okay, he was talking about, the gap between theory and performance. That we all know what the theory is, but, when people get into positions of authority or responsibility, they find it difficult to strike the balance between theory and performance, given the realities of office. Do you think that this is part of the problem, particularly with the efficiency of the police?
Well, I think it's people who do not understand theory well that will have problem with practice. If you have a good understanding of theory, then when you go to practice, you'll be able to implement it. We should be very careful not to engage in dangerous indulgence of people in power. Theory is not born out of brain. That is idea. That is a thing of genius. That is what creative people like Akokuntola Adeni can do. Those are the people that can bring thoughts that are not in normal people's head and just create it. Theory, especially when it comes to management, is a catalog of practical events. So if you have the problem that the man of Ejigbo was talking about, of people taking money on the road, you have to sit down to study the psychology and the criminology of bribe taking. Why do people take bribe? Because they need money and because they're not disciplined, because the consequence is not clear. So when you go in to manage that kind of situation, you have to, on one hand, deal with the sociology of it and the economics of it. Because they have no money and the acceptance in the public, then you create one clear consequence of their action. But between creating clear consequences of the action, you put in processes in which it becomes dangerous to take bribe. It becomes dangerous because you know that you will be caught and you'll be prosecuted. I think we need to develop the mindset of marrying theory and practice together. And this thing we call theory is just principle and catalogs of practices. So we should not go into that dichotomy. I do not agree that there's a problem in getting SERI into practice. That is why you need competent people. Ideally, it is not enough to just nominate people unilaterally. Maybe the next IGP, the IGP of the future, should be people who are going to apply for the job. You choose a team, a group of about 5 to 7 people who are very eligible to become IGPs. Then they show you what their plan is. Then you think, okay, this is a good plan. Better still, if it's a costed plan. Maybe that's the way we need to be choosing the IGP of the future. In the United States, the Attorney General, who's the chief prosecutor in many states, actually goes through elections. I do not like I've criticized that in some academic fora. I do not like the idea of electing Attorney General, but I like the idea of having a manifesto, a plan to say this is what I'll do in office.
There was a gentleman, Sam from Mowe, who also wanted to make a contribution. Sam, if you are still there, please go ahead. Sam from Mowe. Hello, Sam? Okay, while we're waiting for Sam to get ready and get back to us, we'll take this call. Hello?
Yes, Dr. Reuben.
Yes, good afternoon.
I called earlier on and then probably because of the Zoom and you cut me off. I suggest that the studio should be more coordinated so that when we get through, to allow us to have our say first. My name is Ambrose, like I said earlier on, and I live in Mowe.
Okay, it's Ambrose, okay.
Doctor, I have, the issue I'm looking at this time or this moment is this. When it comes to politics, the North seems to be more coordinated. And when with their coordination, I don't really see it as a game of numbers. I see it as a game of the South always ready to take the crumbs, leaving the bread for the Northerners. And that's why you see one IGP after the other, appointments after the other. They are always from the North by this present government. Does it mean that the Igbos, the Yorubas, and the South cannot sit down together and agree? Because I tell you, if all of them agree together, the North will not be able to do all this that they do. And permit me to say that the middle belt that has always been seen as a northern state is not actually a northern state. So because this issue of numbers, where a president just comes up with anything and it forces it on our throat, and all the politicians, the senators, the members of House of Reps, the governors, House of Assembly, they just keep mum because they are benefiting from the crumbs. And they leave the bread for the North. What exactly, how do we, succumb or overcome this situation? Good afternoon.
Okay, Professor Kila, you heard him. Why is it that Northerners are better coordinated than those of us in the South?
Well, I don't know those of us because, that does not speak for me. Because I do not agree with that version. But I also know he does not speak for the vice president, because obviously one will assume that the vice president, an erudite, confident, independent man, will have disagreed with this nomination if it doesn't sit well with him. And so will have all the ministers from the South and all the governors and all the other elected and nominated people from the South. I think, and again, I go back to that fascinating statement by the Yoruba Global Alliance. I think people need to call those who have been elected and nominated to government to see where they stand on issues. You see, when we talk about North and South or state or region, there is something I tend to forget. That a non-elective role, like that of a minister, for example, is actually something that is linked to geographical balance and representation, i.e., the minister is such in the name of the state where he comes from. It's a constitutional requirement. The consequence of such arrangement is that in theory and in practice, the minister should also be accountable to the constituency on whose name, on whose behalf he has become ministers. I think the whole country needs to look onto those who are in power on their behalf and call them to account. I think we need to have a situation where those who are in power in the system called Nigeria need to be forced to speak up on issues of policies, nominations, positions, and utterances. There's no point blaming or imagining a conceived north-south thing. Let us talk of individuals. Let us talk about policies. I think that's the way out of this stage. Otherwise, we're just going to cramp ourselves in an already cramped confusion, which is not what we need.
Okay, thank you very much there. We'll take another call or contribution from the persons who are joining us by Zoom. If you're just joining us, our guest is Professor Anthony Kila, a professor of strategy and development. And he's been talking about the appointment of a new Inspector General of Police, the security challenge in Nigeria, and other issues of common interest. We have a caller there on the line.
Hello?
Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Dr. Abati.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, I want to disagree with the last resource person because that's what I have noticed. I served throughout my years in the Federal Civil Service, majorly in the North. And because I realized that I work with the cabals, they punished me constantly, posting me out of my home base. I'm George, by the way. Hello?
I heard you.
Hello?
I heard you. Thank you for... Please go ahead. Yes, you were talking about when you worked in the North, your experience.
Yes, I worked throughout my 30 years as an administrator. I worked in the Federal Civil Service, majorly in the North. And I want to tell you that whilst in the South, we have jettisoned Southern Protectorate. Majorly, their policies is still predicated on Northern Protectorate. And that is why the Emirati Council supersedes Nigeria Constitution. Yes, if anybody have anything to say contrary to what I've said, they should attempt to be challenged or corrected. And that is why restructuring is very... You cannot leave a whole tribe part of the affairs of Nigeria project. It is ethically and morally wrong. Yes, I stand to be corrected. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. Well, Professor Kila, she has raised very serious questions about Nigerian unity, about restructuring, and about the difference, the politics of difference between the North and the South. Over to you.
Well, what I think at the moment, this issue of a country so centralized and managed by discretion and bias is now obvious to everybody. And the earlier we try to face it, the better for all. The truth is that Nigeria as it stands today is not a workable material. It needs a radical change. What you can debate is what kind of change you want. And at the moment, I look at this country right now, see 3 or 4 figures of people. You have the Republicans, I call them, who believe that the state is good as it is now, and they just need to resolve the issue of unemployment and bad governance. I refer to people who, in a good heart, that is the way they see it. And then you have the unionists, people who say, let us recognize that we are made of different nations and find a way to live together in an equitable way, and each nation can grow by its at its own pace. At best or mildly, those people are asking for a regional system of government. Then you have the independentists who are actually saying, you know what, we don't need to mend broken, unfixable bones. Let everybody be in their own nation, and we can meet, just as we meet with Cameroon and Algeria, we can meet as different nations and trade again. Whatever you feel, this situation is something that is born out of bad governance, that does not allow people to feel that they're good to be together like before. People are feeling shackled. People are feeling unfulfilled. The union called Nigeria. Now, there is a next level, which is a worrisome one for Nigeria, and really fascinating for any student of structure. That there are more people, more groups. Nigeria is made up of various groups, and there are more groups now asking to be let go of that group. What that tells you is that we have gone beyond what you will call a quest for seceding. What we're seeing is a quest for dissolution, as Aladeni will eloquently put it. We're going beyond just to say, I want to go. If you have a component of 7, and about 5 of them are telling you, let us go separately, that is not secession anymore. That is a quest for dissolution. So what you need now is a group of leaders that understands reality, and they have to come up with a proposal that can show that it understands this request and find a way to accommodate it. And they should do it because the consequence of not doing it is that it's going to blow up in everybody's face if they're not careful. There is a large section of the society that does not feel represented, that does not feel fairly treated. There is, and this part of the society, we all know, tends to be majorly the Middle Belt and the whole of the South. But I can assure you, Dr. Abiodun Aneri, who is from my constituency, will assure you as well, that we also have people in the North that do not feel represented and do not feel they can benefit from this present situation. What that tells you is that we have a cacophony, we have a real discontent. This is a market of frustrated, discontented people, and it needs to be resolved out. It needs to be sorted out. The worst thing that's happened to Nigeria in the past 6 years. And that is the idea that citizens feel the government is against them. Rightly or wrongly, a lot of people in Nigeria feel the government of the day is taking a side against the rest of them. That is very, very bad and dangerous for governance. So those calling for restructuring, look, it's the mildest thing you can ask for. Nigeria as it is too centralized. I asked for 3 Ds in moving forward Nigeria. It has to be, we have to think of decentralization of authority, devolution of power, and digitalization of our processes. And until we start thinking along those lines, it's trouble.
We have just about 2 minutes to go, Professor Kila. But I wanted to ask you a question with regard to the situation in the Southeast. Will there be peace in the Southeast? Will it make any difference if in 2023 there is a consensus to ensure that Nigeria has an Igbo president?
Well, I think politicians will tell you yes. I have learned after a few decades in life that when we talk about political matters, we should always separate the interests of citizens from the interests of politicians. Generally, politicians want power. Whether they use the power for good or evil is secondary. Politicians are poised to go for power. Citizens want a good, peaceful life. What citizens want is to trade, to love, to worship in a sure way that follows that desire. It is an illusion to think that the situation of the country will be resolved if one part of the country gets power or not. It is an illusion. What you need is re-engineering of the country. Personally, I am for nations. I do not believe in this contraction that it is. I think we should go for nations, and I think whoever wants to rule Nigeria needs to come with a clear, feasible, costable plan of what to do. And honestly, the battle for who rules Nigeria is a symptom of how bad the thing is. Let me tell you this. The idea of zoning in democracy or the idea of creating slot is not a merit, it's a flaw in the system. It is a bit like what I call in politics, zoning and merit is to what chastity and impotency is to sex in a private life. It is not a merit to be talking of zoning. It is because we don't trust each other. If it was clear merit, it won't matter. I hope for a country in the future where really it won't matter who's president, because everybody will be too busy, carpenters making their tables, writers writing their books, and doctors treating their patients to bother about who's president or not.
Well, on that note, Professor Anthony Kila, we would like to thank you very much for taking time out to be part of this program today. Our hope is that, well, we'll get there in this country, and many of the problems we're facing would be solved at some point. I would also like to thank all our listeners and those who took time out to call in or to participate via Zoom, Twitter, and Facebook. Remember, the conversation does not end at this point. You can reach out to me on my social media account at Abati1990, both on Instagram and Twitter, and at City1051 on all social media platforms. For those of you who tuned in late, no need to worry. You can visit the City 1051 FM YouTube page to watch the entire show. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And don't forget also to tune in next week at noon for another exciting edition of City Talks with Reuben Abati. My name is Reuben Abati. The show was produced by Adedoja Allen, Abiodun Odunton, Ayodamola Oludara, Oluwaseun Adetitun, and Olanrewaju Onipede Jr. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
City Talks with Reuben Abati.